So my family became a Jehovah's Witness when I was about 7 years old, after my mom found the courage to leave my violent father. So she was already in a vulnerable situation. So her and my grandmother joined the Jehovah's Witnesses quite quickly, actually. And within 6 months of joining, she met somebody within the religion, and when they got married, he was like a ministerial servant, which is a kind of minor role of authority in the religion. And from that point, our lives just revolved around that religion. So there are 3 meetings a week. You need to do a family Bible study for an hour every week, and then you have your individual Bible study for an hour every week. You have to prepare for all of the meetings, and you go on the ministry, which is the door knocking, when they come around your house. You have to prepare for the ministry, and then there's like a Bible text that you have to read in the morning. So it's like a really busy life being a Jehovah's Witness. But I kind of liked the extra reading. I liked reading as a child, and I liked learning about the Bible stories, and I had a lot of questions, and that's when the problems began. You're not really supposed to question it. So I used to ask a lot of questions about it all, and I used to get into quite a lot of trouble for asking questions. I remember I was just talking to another ex-Jehovah's Witness friend, and we had the same question about dinosaurs, because the Jehovah's Witnesses believe in creationism, but they also believe dinosaurs did exist. And I remember asking my mom, well, why did Jehovah make the dinosaurs? If it's just going to kill them all anyway. And she said, well, it's because they needed to eat all the excess vegetation. I was like, oh, okay. But some of the dinosaurs had like really sharp teeth and like claws and things. They ate meat. She said, well, they were to eat the vegetarian dinosaurs. And I was like, well, why didn't he just make the right amount of trees and plants in the first place? Well, that was a really stupid question, apparently. And so I had loads of these questions. Another one with Balaam's ass was this a guy that was off to go and kill the Israelites, and his donkey started talking to him. Jehovah made his donkey talk to him to stop him from killing the Israelites. And I was like, well, how did the donkey talk? I mean, they don't have a voice box, they don't have tongues like us, and they don't. I was really confused by that. And she said, well, maybe it's like Rod and Emu, which was a children's program in the 80s with a ventriloquist. And I was like, oh, okay, so Jehovah made the donkey talk. And she said, yeah, that's true. And I said, well, they should really write that, because it's not clear. It says here that the donkey spoke, and they should really. So anyway, so I got into a lot of trouble for that. And after that, it was decided that my stepfather should take my Bible study, because he was a lot more experienced and knew more about the Bible. So these Bible studies used to last for like 2 hours, because I had so many questions. If you've ever read the Bible, there's a lot in there that doesn't really quite make sense. But that would always end up with me getting told off quite a lot until I cried. And I'd be told that I was going to die at Armageddon for asking so many questions, and I'd be read scriptures and all the different ways that you could get killed at Armageddon by Jehovah. So bearing in mind I was like 8, 9 years old, so it was a pretty stressful time. I used to have a lot of nightmares and things about all the different ways you could die at Armageddon. That's talked about quite a lot in the Jehovah's Witnesses. We even had a survival box in the loft, so with lots of like tins of baked beans and toilet rolls and things like that. So we were pretty much going to live for 2 weeks during Armageddon on cold baked beans. So yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses also believe in demon possession. As a family, we didn't have a lot of money, so we didn't really have any books other than Jehovah's Witness books and the Bible, of course. An old lady in the congregation took pity on us, me and my sisters, and she gave us all her daughter's old books. So Enid Blyton books and books about animals and things like that. Anyway, it was later discovered that she'd once done a seance, and so it thought that the books might be possessed by demons. They didn't really know which book it was, so all our books got burnt. So, a lot of them I didn't have a chance to read. I'm still annoyed about that. So I still had a lot of too many questions, and I was still getting into a lot of trouble about it. So what I then discovered, I thought I had a really genius way of getting around being able to ask questions, was I discovered that if I asked, what if a Catholic person said da-da-da-da-da, what would I say to that person to convince them that we were right? And I thought, this is a really great way to be able to ask questions. And it was okay, then I was allowed to ask more questions if I framed it in a way as though I already believed it was true. The trouble is, and I'm not really proud of this, if you frame questions in terms of you already believe it, it doesn't really take that long until you do believe it all. And it didn't take that long until I did believe it all, and I stopped asking questions. I really believed it all. And I really believed that Armageddon was coming really soon, and everybody except the Jehovah's Witnesses was going to die. I also believed it was right that I shouldn't have a blood transfusion if that was ever needed, and I should die instead, and that children should die instead. And I would sign a little card, even as a child, to take around with me to say, if that should ever happen, let me die instead. In fact, I remember as a teenager reading Watchtower magazine stories of children and teenagers and adults that had died from not taking a blood transfusion. And I remember I even felt inspired by their stories of martyrdom, and I thought they were good stories. Anyway, so after leaving school, I didn't get very good GCSEs because I never did any homework with all that Bible reading. There wasn't really a lot of time. And after that, I became a regular pioneer, which means you do 90 hours a month door knocking. You don't get paid for that. And I was pretty pious, quite self-righteous, to be honest. And then at about the age of 20, I started having doubts again, and it was quite stressful. I tried to suppress those thoughts, and it made me ill, trying to suppress that. Eventually, after skipping a couple of meetings, my mom kicked me and my sister, my younger sister, out of home. She was also not going to the meetings anymore. She hadn't done for a while. My sister was in the middle of her A-levels, and I had coincidentally just been made redundant from my job. So we were homeless, without money, without income. And when you're in the Jehovah's Witnesses, you're not allowed friends outside of the religion. And when you leave the religion, no one in the religion is allowed to talk to you anymore. So when you leave, you have nobody, literally. So that's tough, and I think it was kind of a bit traumatic, to be honest with you. Anyway, I made friends pretty quick, and I had a couple of weeks left at work before I was made redundant, and the guys at work I made friends with, I'm still friends with some of them today, and they were pretty awesome people. I went to nightclubs for the first time, went dancing, went drinking, did a lot of drinking, went crazy for a while and had boyfriends, and that was exciting. So yeah, I tried to do as many normal things as a 21-year-old would do. And so I went crazy for a while, and that was really good fun. I was free. Eventually calmed down. And at the age of 28, I felt like I'd missed out on education, so I wanted to go back into education, so I did A-levels. And I really loved doing A-levels. And I remember my first week of doing A-levels, and they said, everything that you read, every argument, doesn't matter how convincing this argument is, you got to criticize it, you got to question it, you got to evaluate it, you got to find another argument, and you can't just accept it straight away. And I was like, oh my God, this is great. And I was like, not only are you allowed to ask questions, not only are you allowed to doubt things, you have to. And they give you good marks if you do it. You get rewarded for it. So I really loved that. And I went to university, did a degree in psychology, and got a master's as well. And so that was probably like the happiest time of my life, being able to research, set up experiments, and learn and be free. And given that this is the Free Speech Society, I just want to say, if you've ever experienced not having the freedom to be able to doubt, to question, to speak what you think, there's no way once you get it you ever want to lose that. And so that's my story. And I wanted to say a little bit about the ex-Jehovah's Witness community, because there's quite a big community out there. It took me, after leaving the religion, about 6 years before I had the courage to look up other ex-witnesses. You still have this kind of fear, which I think you do in other religions, of apostasy. And even the word apostate is kind of scary, and it literally makes you feel kind of sick. And most ex-Jehovah's Witnesses have that experience. So even when you put the word apostasy on the flyer, it sort of made me go, which is weird, really. But yeah, so anyway, I found other ex-Jehovah's Witnesses online, mostly in America, and I chatted all day, every day for a really long time with ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and I've made some really good friends through that. And we all kept saying, you know what, we should meet up, and it would be really great. And eventually I set a meet-up in 2007 for ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, and it started off in the back room of a library in Rochester, because we were so scared that we'd meet actual Jehovah's Witnesses. So we were like, oh, we're just having cups of tea in the back of the library, and eventually we realized this is silly, and we just went to the pub. So, yeah, and then the rest of the meetings started to be in London. And anyway, so that meetup group is now run by a good friend of mine, Steve, and most of the meetings are in London. We have events at the British Museum where we talk about the actual history of the Bible, and then most of them are just meetups in the pub where we just all make friends and chat. And we have meetups all over the country. We have about 700 different members, so it's pretty cool, actually. And the online community is really taking off. In the UK, we have like a Facebook group to offer support to ex-witnesses. A wonderful woman named Mara set this group up. It's absolutely amazing. We have about 20 different admin members, and we all offer support. And as a whole community, we all offer emotional support to people. We have people that are suicidal. We've helped people who are active suicidal. We've helped people who are homeless, abuse victims. As with a lot of Christian churches, the Jehovah's Witnesses have a real problem with child abuse, covering child abuse up. They have this rule where there has to be, for rape or child abuse, any kind of thing like that, there needs to have been 2 witnesses to find guilt. Generally, rapists and child abusers don't wait till there's 2 people watching, so no one's ever found guilty. And even if there's like DNA evidence and the person's sent to prison, they may not get disfellowship from the congregation. Even though you can get disfellowship without any witnesses watching for smoking a cigarette or reading anti-Jehovah's Witness literature, you can get disfellowship for that. There doesn't need to be 2 witnesses watching for that, but rape and more serious things, there does. So that's what we do. We offer support, and at the moment, there's people in the community working with the Charity Commission to investigate the Jehovah's Witnesses. In Australia, there was recently a Royal Commission into institutional child abuse that happens in institutions, and the Jehovah's Witnesses, they discovered there were over 1,006 cases of child abuse. Not one was reported to the police, and we have pretty much the same situation in the UK, and we're kind of hoping for this will all come to light soon. So that's what we do. We don't talk about the depressing things all the time. It's about friendship and support and celebrating our freedom. But yeah.
Thanks very much for that, Terry. I think there's so many trends that you can see across different religions when you look at that. Like you mentioned the 2 witnesses. There's similar issues actually within not all the time, but sometimes there are issues with witnesses within Muslim communities, because there's similar issues with witnesses. So you can have 2, I think, or 4 witnesses, and there's issues about gender on that and stuff like that. So it gets complicated. And as you guys probably can see that, it isn't all about the depressing stuff, but that's important, obviously. Yeah. But it isn't just about the depressing stuff. It's about coming together. It's about finding people like yourself and all that. And that's kind of just as important, or if not more important.
We spend more time on the non-depressing stuff, to be honest.
Yeah.